to the second episode of A Mindful Christmas, where we are trying to help you enjoy the lead up to Christmas so that you can get the best out of the experience, which, as we all know, won't be the same as the last one. And it's better to embrace that and be with where you are now. So, we discussed pressure and expectation last time. If you listen to us, if you haven't, I would suggest checking that out because there are some good tips in there. And today we are going to focus a bit more around the stress and conflict of Christmas, because despite us trying our best to be present and remove pressure, stresses can still arise and conflicts happen, some of which are out of our control. And we're just going to discuss how mindfulness could maybe help you with that, aren't we, Alan?
We certainly are. And as we all know, this time of year is very stressful. It can be joyful and enjoyable, but our mission is to help you make it a little bit more peaceful and enjoyable rather than have all this, frankly, a lot of it unnecessary stress. And you said there, Kelly, you said some of it is out of our control. I actually think most of the things that happen are out of our control. The only thing that is in our control is the choice of how we react to it, which is basically a cornerstone of mindfulness, isn't it?
Very true, because the power is in our response, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That
Yeah.
stoic thing where if something happens, you've got the choice of how you react to it. And actually, when you think about it, and I imagine a lot of people will be screaming at their speaker when they hear me say this, but a lot of stress we do to ourselves rather than it is actually inflicted upon you.
I
Now,
know.
I know that, okay, so particularly when you're hosting Christmas and you've just got an enormous amount of work to do in the kitchen. I remember doing this one year and just felt like I was cooking and washing up the whole of Christmas Day and didn't even seem to get to sit down until about 6 o'clock in the evening. The thing is, we can confuse that with stress, right? It felt stressful, but I probably let it get on top of me a little bit rather than just kind of be in the moment and just think, well, it has to be done, just do it and enjoy it, or try and enjoy it a little bit more than you might ordinarily do.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I've had Christmases like that, excuse me, where I spent all day in the kitchen. And I think something which is quite difficult as well to get your head around, and I found this really hard to hear quite a few years ago now, but ultimately, a bit like your comment earlier, we are responsible for how we react, aren't we? And how we feel. So we can choose to let certain things affect us and take it in. And we can also choose if we kind of move past the way that things should be, essentially, on those days where you're spending all day cooking. I guarantee for most people that have got a house full, someone will come in and say, "Can I give you a hand with anything?" And you go, "No, no, you sit down. I've got this. Don't worry." Or then someone else will come in, "Sure you don't want a hand with anything?" "No, I'm all good." And you're in there like a glass of wine in hand, drinking that, trying to get it done, but you could just say, "Oh, yeah, actually, could you do this?" They'd probably be quite happy to. But again, I know we've spoken about expectation, but you think things should be that way, don't you? And then you let the stress build up. So we are responsible for the stress that we put on ourselves to a degree, because we do not do things that could be quite simple to do, but we just get caught up in routine.
That's true. So it becomes a habit, doesn't it? And it becomes a habit that you get stuck in. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, and you're right. You put that upon yourself. But I suppose in some ways it's easier just to go along your routine rather than have it be broken. But again, one of these things about mindfulness is if you open yourselves up to do different things and have different reactions, you can be more mindful of it rather than just being the autopilot and that same old routine. Um, I think.
I would agree. And when we think about stress itself, like you said, it's something that's happening to us. We can use mindfulness, can't we, to help us take moments to, as I like to say, remove the layers of the stress. So we kind of, even if it's just little by little, you're just dissolving those layers, aren't you? Just a bit at a time. And although you might be under stress still, we're not saying that you're going to remove stress for the whole of the festive season by listening to this one podcast, but we're giving people tips so that it's easier, so that you can take some of those things away. And I think that's what mindfulness is giving. So I think the non-judgment aspect of the attitudes that we've spoken about is really important at Christmas, because we just feel that we need to fit into this ideal, and we can just have a new way, and that's okay. Things don't have to be the same.
You're right. Especially with a thing like Christmas where tradition seems so important. So you do get stuck in the same old routines and habits. So it is good to mix it up a little bit too, even though a lot of people don't like that. But again, it's also letting go of what your perfect Christmas should be. Even if you're not that bothered about it, you've probably still got a model in your head of how you'd like it to go. And it's this thing about, another of the attitudes is let go of that. Stop clinging on to the idea that it's going to be a certain way, because it won't. And we talked about this quite a bit, I think, in the last episode, that we have this memory of how Christmas should be and this model of it in our heads. And it's never going to be that way.
No.
Nowhere near even, and then you just end up being disappointed. So it's letting go of that clinging on of what it should look like, but also accepting the new experiences that you have. And that's another mindful attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And on the subject of conflict, I think with that, a lot of conflict can come from, trying to think of a way to say this nicely. But I think it comes from a place of where, back to the expectation, there's too much expectation. So, for example, some people simply will not enjoy Christmas. Now, I actually love Christmas. I like the festive season and the drinks and the food and the family. I enjoy that. But for some people, Christmas will just be too hard. And quite often, those people would rather not have to be sucked into that Christmas spirit because it's too difficult. But that's their personal choice. They're giving them self-compassion by not wanting to do that. But for those people, it's what happens. The people around them will be putting pressure on that person, making them feel stressed that they need to participate in this big event. And actually, I think the kindest thing that we can do is just try and accept what people need. Because, I mean, we're all gearing up for people to have a really mindful Christmas and a lovely one. And that obviously is the aim for a lot of people. But I did just want to touch on those people that don't want to enjoy it, or don't want to celebrate Christmas Day. That's okay. I mean, this time of year, I know people that are like, might want to go abroad at Christmas and like escape to the sunshine because they do not want to have those memories. And that's how they're looking after themselves. And it's kind of our place to just be with how we feel and accept how others feel, because we can't make people do things. And that can cause conflict in itself, because you might want a big family get together, but some people just may not want to be there. But we let that affect us, don't we? We do have to be mindful of others, that they're only doing what they can do, and sometimes things are just too difficult.
That's true. And you can't take on everybody's problems either.
No.
But while you were talking there, Kelly, I was thinking about in a lot of the conversations we're having, we're talking about having conflict with others, and these are the people that we supposedly the nearest and dearest to us. And here we are talking about, the stress and conflict of being with them, because the reality is that does happen. You know, um, that adage about, if somebody stays with you for more than 3 days, it's the amount of time that it takes for fish to go off. And, people start to get a bit upset with each other, and it's true, if somebody's staying with you for a long time. But more seriously, I think, also thinking about people who are on their own at Christmas and, um, and may have that dread of Christmas that they are, oh, here's another Christmas and I'm on my own. And, it's terribly sad to think about it. And homeless people and all that is just, it's in some ways, it's a very sad time for some people. Some people may enjoy being on their own at Christmas, but for a lot of people, it's really painful. But so I guess, one of the ways around stress, conflict is just a bit of gratitude, that we have got people around us to be with. And very often it's just a change of mindset. You're going in with the mindset very often is, I'm going to hate this. I can't stand so and so, and they always do this, but it's a change of mindset and going in with the open mind, the non-judgmental mind, as you mentioned earlier, that can just tweak things, just pivot things so that you can actually start to relax about it and enjoy it and be open-minded. And you never know. It may well prove to be much better than you thought. Lower your expectations, as I talked about miserably in the last episode.
No, you are right. I think going in with like that beginner's mind because you don't know how it's going to be, do you? I mean, we spend a lot of time moaning and complaining and putting things down. That's just something we all do. And like you said, being grateful, we need to spend more time appreciating and seeing what's there and, just being open to new experience, like you said. I mean, stress is there in all of us if we allow it to get bigger. It will just get out of control, won't it? But the other thing I think is really important at Christmas is just to accept that the things that don't go right or as you thought, to let go of them. We've got to let go. We have to let go. I remember a Christmas once where, as I've discussed, I've got children, and if there's something at Christmas that your child wants, it's like the thing, whatever the thing is, and then all these parents are trying to buy the thing, and if you cannot get this thing, oh my gosh, I mean, I just well, can you just imagine that, like, Father Christmas hasn't delivered this? Why not? What's that thing? But you have to let go of some things. I don't know if you've seen do you like Stephen Merchant, the comedian?
I do, yeah.
Oh, he did a brilliant thing last Christmas. I don't know if you saw it. I hope they
I
replay it
didn't.
this Christmas. And if anyone listening to this should check it out. So he goes on a road trip
Okay.
with this neighbor. Oh, it is brilliant. And his daughter wants this flashing unicorn toy thing. And he gets in the queue to buy the unicorn thing. And it's, I don't know, just say it was 20 quid. He gets to the front of the till because his wife's reserved one and it's 50 quid. So he's like, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying it. Forget it. And everyone behind that's queuing up is like, brilliant. There's one more left. So he leaves the thing, gets home. The wife is absolutely furious, to get this thing. And then the whole episode is about going on a road trip with his neighbor to try and find this thing. Oh, it's just so funny. But the point is that I think there's a lot of stress around things that actually don't matter when you really think about it.
Yeah. Did it matter to his daughter though?
Well, it did for, I suppose it did for a moment. It's worth a watch anyway, even if it just takes
Yeah,
us
I'll
off
have a
track.
look.
But I think a lot of the things we stress about, if you were to strip it all back, it wouldn't actually matter when you look back next year to this year. You'd just think, why was I even stressed about that? Did it
Yeah,
matter?
you're right. It's the same. Well, it's the same generally in life all year round, isn't it? But probably especially so at Christmas because there's so much stuff that you do, and you think of all the things that you do, if you could list them all out, what are the really, really, really important things? Probably only three or four
Exactly.
out of 100.
I mean, the stress that is put around the food shop at Christmas is outrageous, isn't it? And last year, my mum was really unwell, and I think the turkey dried out, or there was a big catastrophe
Mm,
around it. We didn't have that, and I think I made it was like a beef stew or something really non-Christmas because of the stressful time.
okay.
But I don't look back at that Christmas thinking, "Oh gosh, I missed out on that." Right? It was about being with my family at the time, you know.
You're
So
right. You're right. You don't remember the taste of the turkey, do you? You just remember the feeling around it. So that's for me is another good tip about, we touched on how you embrace it last time, but you can embrace it by just really being there, just really using your senses and to smell the food, to hear the noise, the chatter. If you're lucky enough to have people around you, to see the lights, just really use your senses to open up, and then you kind of lock it in. It's that mental record button that we all have, rather than taking photographs of things all the time. Just use your mental record button to take it all in.
I know, because that's what like mindfulness just gives us that freedom, doesn't it? That freedom to choose what we think about and what feelings we can manage. And I think with everybody getting too caught up in the way that things should be, they lose the new opportunities that are right there. And it's such a shame, really, because this Christmas essentially could be few steps away from the best Christmas ever if they just let go of all the things that aren't really that important. I mean, of course, people want to feed their family and care and look after people and things like that, but you can have so much more in other things. And I don't know if this is down to my cooking skills, but whenever I sit down at the table, I always have cold turkey anyway by the time it's reached my plate, and I'm often
Oh no.
underwhelmed. So, yeah, I just think stress can be removed if we allow it. And mindfulness gives you the tools to know that it's okay to do that, I think.
Yeah, you're right. You just got to be careful though, because what you just said is, if you only do this, and this, you could be have the best Christmas you've ever had. Automatically, you raise expectations. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I know
don't
what you
do that.
mean.
Don't do that, everybody.
No, I know I
Keep
don't.
your keep your
Sorry.
expectations low. It's going to be terrible.
But there is also the flip
I
side
don't
there
mean that.
where I'm going to disagree with you and say that you do have to have that positive outlook, don't you?
Oh, you do. You do, because yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should go in thinking it's terrible, going to be terrible, because then it will be terrible. It will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, go in with an open mind. Don't expect. You know what I mean? Because you said something about the Christmas shop. I always do this on the Christmas shop. I have to wind myself up for it. If it's a couple of days before Christmas and I'm going to Tesco, and it's like I just say to myself, I'm going to hate this, and I'm preparing myself for that busy shop with ignorant people who get in your way, and all they care about is their own Christmas, and they don't care about the trolleys in the way, And I have to wind myself up to think it's going to be okay. But what I try and do more of is just be in the moment, accept that I have to do it, accept that it's a privilege to do it, because it is really, isn't it? When you strip it back, especially what I've just said about lonely people, and who would love to fill their trolley with goodies to share with others. It's a real privilege. What a shame that we lose that thought.
Exactly. And nothing is a given, is it? If you think about going into Tesco's, and there's all these mad, angry people just filling their trolleys and things are going off the shelves and you might not get the last thing someone else takes it. Well, you've got to let go of that because at the end of the day, maybe it's just not for you. I mean, I quite believe in I know this is a whole nother discussion, but here I go. The whole putting it out there and things coming to you when they're ready. So quite often I'll drive into a supermarket genuinely or wherever I'm going, and the car park's full. And I've been in a number of times with my friends and family, and I've gone, don't worry about it. I've already seen the space. I've got one. It's not a problem. And honest to God, I'm not even making this up. I've never had a problem with the parking space because I just believe that it's there. And if you if you believe, it's like my whole Father Christmas thing. having the ability to believe in something you can't see. If you believe
Yeah.
in it enough, it's real. It's like the parking space. But it's also the same with, that stressful food shop. It can be a wonderful experience, even with all those people crashing into you with trolleys and racing for different things, and you having to queue at the till for ages and then something not scanning. I mean, it's stressful, right? But
Yeah,
we don't have to let it be that way.
you're right. So, as we kind of will come to a conclusion fairly soon, because we know everybody is busy and everybody has to get on with their Christmas, what would your top tip be for handling stress this Christmas?
I would say if you feel really stressed out, just to genuinely just stop and do a really simple technique. We talked about grounding exercises, just breathe in, think of your feet. That really helps you ground yourself down, doesn't it? Just breathing in and thinking about your feet, even with like heavy metal boots on, just bringing you into the moment and then revisiting that thing you were stressed about. And is it quite as bad, or can you remove just part of that stress, one layer of that stress, so that it's not quite as bad as it was before? Because it's all about the small steps, I would think,
Yeah,
would be helpful. What
yeah.
about you?
Well, that's good. When you said stop, I was going to say use the stop meditation, and you can use that at any point, particularly you mentioned that thing about when you're in the checkout queue, and I always feel like I'm holding people up, and that
Mm.
stresses me out, which is, again, is something I don't need to feel stressed about. It's a pressure I put on myself that, may or may not be the reality anyway. But that stop meditation, when you're sort of in the checkout queue or maybe something's happening, and you just literally, the stop is the acronym, isn't it? So S is for stop,
Well,
T is
actually, before you carry on, why don't you just finish this episode with that,
oh,
and then people could take it with
what
them?
an idea. Okay, yeah, let's do that. All right, so we'll just do quickly the stop. Imagine you are in the checkout queue, your trolley is full, and there are people trying to get past you down to get to different aisles and all that, and you're feeling a bit stressed with it. Well, just stop. Stop thinking a second and take a breath. So you just breathe, tune in to your breathing, and that's the T. And then the O is to observe your breath. Observe now what you're thinking, because that's what mindfulness is all about, isn't it? It's observation. It's being curious rather than judgmental, and it's accepting the way you're thinking and letting go of those thoughts as well. And you're still focusing on your breathing. And then the P in stop stands for proceed. So you just carry on. So you haven't had to close your eyes. You haven't had to go and sit somewhere to take yourself out. You've done a formal little bit of mindfulness there, a little practice while you're actually in the heat of the battle, as I like to say. So there you go. Stop. Thank you for reminding me to do that, Kelly.
Well, thank you for sharing. I thought that was lovely, and hopefully people will just use that just to break out of any stress they're feeling, or when handling conflict. That would be really useful as well, just
I
to
think so.
reflect and just notice how they feel after, because that's what it's all about, noticing how we feel.
You got it in right at the end. Well
Well,
done.
I very much enjoyed this, and I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas.
And the same to you, Kelly. Merry Christmas to you.
And I think we can say that that's Christmas all wrapped up.
Oh, I like what you did there.
And
Well
hopefully,
played.
we will be back in the new year with series 2 of the Lose Your Mind podcast. So look out for that. And we wish you all a very Merry Christmas too.
Yeah, enjoy yourselves. Have a mindful Christmas and come out the other side, won't you? All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Kelly. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. We'll see you in the new year. Bye now.
Bye.